Hello everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. Whenever we do a video that involves the CZ75 family and its multiple variants, inevitably we'll get somebody that asks about the Rami. The Rami is very difficult to get a hold of, but I got one. This one is the BD model, which is the Decocker only. There's also a safety only version of it, which allows you to carry cocked and locked. These don't have the Omega trigger, so that they're not readily user changeable from safety to decocker or backwards, unlike the Omega trigger versions where the parts come in the kit and you can do it with basic tools. You'd have to find the parts and there would be some gunsmithing involved. I'm sure it's feasible, but for this particular one, buy it the way you want it. And when we found this one, of course this one is unloaded, they had both sitting there. They had the safety version and they had the Decocker only, and they were a little bit overpriced. They had them priced around $700. The MSRP on these is around $630-ish. So they, due to every circumstances going on right now, these were a little overpriced, but it's a nice gun. And one of the things, it was almost instant like. You pick it up, it just put it in your hand, it fits nice. I'm going to put the 10-round pinky extender magazine that comes with it. It's a 2-finger grip, which is nice in that if you're wanting to carry this, it's going to be very easy to hide that grip. The grip is the hardest part of any gun to hide. And it feels just nice in the hand. It fits right in, the shape of it and the roundness of it, the slightly rubberized grips. One thing we found, it's a relatively small pistol, especially as hammer guns go, handled recoil very well. It was comfortable, it wasn't snappy at all. Now it's a little on the heavier side, weighs 25.9 ounces, but that's not ridiculous. It's only a few ounces heavier than some of the competition that you might carry in this particular realm. It's 6.5 inches front to back, including the beaver tail. It's 4.7 inches tall with the flush mag, or actually the pinky extender magazine in it. And it's relatively thin for a hammer gun at 1.25. A lot of hammer guns tend to be a little bit on the plumper side. It's got some striping back here that fits into your palm, but it doesn't bite into you, it's not scratchy. Magazine release is easy to get to. Magazines pop mostly free. They tend to drag just a hair, and if you're doing it like I'm doing it with my thumb, you may get the magazine hit into your palm. So depending on the circumstances and the shape of your hand, you may find that it's a little bit more difficult to get it to drop free. The magazine that also comes with it is this 14 round. It has a sleeve, and that fits in very well. Now you've got a full 3-finger grip. And of course that one's going to drop a little bit easier unless it hits the palm of your hand again. So this is a little bit more difficult with the shape of it and the roundness of it to do high-speed tactical mag changes because of the recessed release and the kind of the round shape. It's a little bit harder, at least for me, to get my thumb over there, but it does operate smoothly. And if you have larger hands, you probably won't have a problem with that. Or if you tilt it up a little bit, so that you got your thumb underneath it and grab the magazine and pull it out. The magazines do go in and out smoothly. Even the larger magazines that come with other CZ75 variants will mount and work perfectly. So you've got a lot of flexibility on the magazine. Now in that case you saw it drop nice and free because it didn't have a sleeve touching my hand, so nothing was up against my hand and away it went. The sights on this, on the BD version, the Decocker version, came with tritium night sights with white rings. Real easy to see 3-dot sights. They stand right out. They don't gray out at the range. Real easy to pick up and operate. The safety version of it, I believe, comes with just white dot sights. Now, of course, you're going to find variations of these available that change up that combination. You may find a Decocker with white dots and vice versa. But this is what's showing on their website right now. The capacity, the small size, the really good recoil management, other than a little bit heavier, would make this a very good carry gun. The Decocker works smoothly, and you'll see that it has a bit of what you consider a rebounding hammer or a stop that prevents the hammer from sitting on the firing pin. In addition to that, it has the internal firing pin piston block, so it is a drop-safe weapon by design. And overall, it's just easy to use, it's comfortable to use, it's fun to shoot. And it's well constructed. I'll show you, especially when I get it apart, that there's a lot of cool features in the way this thing is well constructed. Let's talk about the trigger a little bit. So we'll start with the single action mode since I have it in single action. There's a little bit of take up, and then a very short brake with a little bit of over travel, and it comes in around 4.5 pounds. A little bit on the longish side for a reset and some take up off the reset, and then another really short 4.5 pound brake with some over travel. So the trigger isn't perfection on this, but it's a nice trigger. It's easy to operate. It was easy to get good follow-ups with it, and it's light enough to feel good, but not so short that you might consider it a hair trigger. So overall, it's kind of a good balance. Now, double action mode, there you go. It's a little on the long side, which is typical. Comes in around 10 pounds, but it's smooth and linear. I don't notice any real stacking at the end or any grit or anything else like that. It's just a little on the heavier side. So the way you would carry this is your first shot would be double action because you will have decocked it. It's not designed to be carried cocked and locked with this particular setup. And then it would cycle, and then everything after that would be single action, nice and short and light. So this is truly designed set up like your classic double action, single action, which starts in double action mode if you're carrying this. Now, of course, if you're at the range or even if you're carrying it, you always have the option of thumb and the hammer, and it has a really nice hammer spur with serrations on it, so it's really easy to get a hold of. But again, it's not scratchy or abrasive. And this does have rear serrations. It doesn't have any front serrations, but the slide is relatively easy to get a hold of due to this little bit of an inset. So you can do press checks if that's your inclination, but it's designed to be cocked by the rear, and of course the slide is lower profile due to the overall design, the way CZs tend to be. Disassembly of these is very similar to any other of the CZ75s, but there is one exception. There's no markings indicating where to put the slide. Usually there'll be a marking on the frame and a marking on the slide. So what I determined is right about there, where the first serration lines up with the back of the frame, is about the right spot to put it to disassemble it. And then on the other side, you need to use something to push out the pin to get it started. And once you get the pin started, you can come back over the other side, and usually it'll pop right out. Sometimes you have to fight with it a little bit to get your finger under it. And then if you did happen to cock the hammer to make it easier to disassemble, I do find that if you decock it, of course at this point since it's not in battery, hold the hammer, makes it a little bit easier to get it to slide apart. You'll have fewer components that are in the way, and then it slides right apart. Everything is well machined. You'll see there's the drop safety piston at the back. We'll talk about the frame a little bit. The slide guides are reversed on the CZ75 and like guns. Now this is a 2075, but it's based on the 75. It's an aluminum alloy frame. The guides are full length, but they're reversed. Instead of things sticking in like this that the slide attaches to, they're inset into the frame, and the part that sticks out is actually on the slide, which lowers the slide down into the frame. You want to keep this oiled because it is steel on aluminum, but because it's full length on both sides, there's no small area taking all the load. These are not known to wear out. These hold up quite well. They've kind of mastered the design, but it is important to keep it oiled. And then on the slide, you'll see the guides here where they stick out and they engage with those rails. It has what I would call a semi-captive dual recoil spring. The inner spring is fully captive. The second one's not captive, but it has a tendency to want to stay on there. There's a little bit of a detent, so it doesn't usually go flying off, and it's fairly light. Take the barrel out. And it has a nice polished feed ramp, more of a machine polish than a mirror polish. Nice conventional rifling. And the machining on the CZs is usually really nice. The only thing they tend not to worry about is fine detail. So you will find some machining marks on them where they don't worry about cleaning up the detail pass. But they're always machined well from a functional standpoint. They just don't seem to worry so much about the decorative side of it. Putting it back together is relatively easy. Now in this case, because I picked it up and then dropped it, the spring did come off, but it's easy to slide it right back on. And then it slides in. Usually find it's easier to assemble these upside down. Of course, it is difficult to line up if you're not turning it towards you. Then what you do is first you line up the barrel. You can see through there, you can see the light. You line up the barrel, push this through enough to capture the barrel. Of course, it's going to give me a hard time because I'm not doing it facing me. I've got it turned for the camera, which will always screw you up every time. But if you're doing this yourself, you would of course have it lined up for you. So I'm going to just fix that and then I'll resume. I had allowed the recoil spring to slip out of place, so I couldn't get the barrel lined up. And then pull this back. Once you capture the barrel, you pull it back till that side lines up, and then push it home. Oops, I went a little too far. There you go. It is easier than it looks when you're turning things to face you, not turning things to face a camera. It's a little trickier than some of the modern ones where you just flip down a lever or pull two little tabs, but overall it's not difficult to maintain one of these. Kind of wipe some of the oil off it there. If you're looking for a classic DASA gun, especially for a carry gun, this is one of the smaller ones you're going to find that is pleasant to shoot. There are ones out there that are significantly smaller, but then they start to get into being snappy or relatively low capacity. 14 rounds and 10 rounds is actually decent capacity in something this size. And you might find that you carry something like this, CZ75 for competition, maybe home defense, and you want to complement this with a much smaller concealed carry version. Now you can have the best of both worlds. And we have a review, of course, on this one on the channel. We'll put the link in the description. And then we'll do some comparisons comparing the various small versions, medium versions. We've got several different flavors of the CZ75 that we can do some comparisons with. Beyond that, if you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, click that bell to be notified if you do. Check us out on Facebook, Patreon, Twitter, Instagram, pretty much everywhere. Thank you.